All right, so welcome into another episode of the XRP podcast. Today is going to be fun. We've got a special guest coming to us, and of course, that is Jesse over at Apex Crypto Insights. We'll be breaking into that, where XRP is living today on the price charts, of course, with a lot of other things that are happening on a global aspect of where XRP could be used. You don't want to miss it. Stick around. I do want to take a little bit of time and, of course, thank our sponsor, and that is Uphold. If you guys have not checked out Uphold and their newest debit card, this is the time to do it. Let me kind of share this screen with you because this is something that they have started here recently and now is fully available. This, of course, is a debit card that works directly with your Uphold account. You can earn up to 6% XRP on everything you buy for up to 3 months. You'll be able to get the card. It's like so there's no credit check. It's a full-blown debit card, has direct access directly into your account. There are ways in which you can stack on other rewards and other benefits. You can get up to 10% XRP back with a direct deposit. No credit checks, of course. Use anywhere Visa is accepted. Make sure and use our link to kind of use that because it does help us out, and we'll get into it. Hey, how are you, man?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good, thanks, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. Great to have you on the show again.
Thank you so much for having me.
For many of you, if you're not following Jesse, what I would do is just jump over to his YouTube channel. Let me share that for you guys. This is where you can find it right there on YouTube. I'm a proud subscriber. Apex Crypto Insights. Check it out, man. He does a lot of drops on new stuff that's happening, but also the more complex story behind XRP as a whole. If you're brand new to XRP and you need to learn about why this is such a great product in terms of a crypto asset, check out Jesse's channel. All right, guys, let's get into it. Jesse, a couple of points I want to start with. When we had a chance to chat prior to the show, one of the things we want to get into, of course, is the relationship of the DTCC and XRP in terms of settlement and what that might look like. When you explain this to someone that says, well, wait a minute, the DTCC, they're not really using crypto yet. How would this apply to XRP? How would you answer that?
Yeah, so based on my research, the whole agenda for Ripple is really, it's the internet of value, right? So it's they want to bridge any type of asset to any type of asset. And to me, the goal is the derivatives market because that's where the big money is. You're talking 3 to 3.6 quadrillion per year. And so if you want to remove the friction in anything, it's definitely the derivatives market at the end of the day. That's what you want to settle instantly. So that's the goal, but you can't just go to the derivatives market instantly. You need to build liquidity. So in my opinion, what they're doing is slowly they're building up the liquidity exchanges, so on and so forth, to get to the derivatives market. So when we look at the projects, for example, we see R3 in Project Ion with the DTCC. Now, it talks about settlement, but R3 Corda itself doesn't do settlement. It uses the Corda application. And you might as well call it the XRP app. It uses the Corda settler, and you might as well call it the XRP settler because it uses XRP for settlement. And this has been proven. We see that in the code. We've seen that in presentations of Corda showing XRP being used for settlement. When they originally announced that about the Corda settler, that they're going to use Corda settler for settlement, they said that XRP is the first digital assets that's going to be used by Corda settler. Now, they didn't say there won't be any other, but it's the only one aside from Stellar that can do cross-border, cross-asset and provide that liquidity. And R3 received 5 billion XRPs originally from Ripple for what? Not for nothing. Mm-hmm. There was a lawsuit where it seems that R3 was not holding their weight, and then the lawsuit was settled, and immediately after, 2 weeks after, R3 launched the Corda settler, which allows the R3 Corda network, which is like 90% of the banks in the world are connected to R3. It allows them to settle transactions with the Corda settler, which uses XRP. We've never had an announcement saying they'll use something else.
Okay, so I get that. When you look at the potential of the DTCC being involved, because they process an enormous amount of volume in terms of transactions, how would the XRP settlement work at this scale? What would the technical implementation look like? How would this kind of come together?
What would
the technical implementation look like? How do you feel like this would come together?
Yeah, well, when we look at the, because I was referring to Project Ion. I don't know if I made that clear. I just want to clarify that, right? The Project Ion, which was a big project that DTCC talked about for settlement, they're using R3 Corda, right? And again, R3 Corda uses XRP. But you would do it that way, but also DTCC can use third parties the same way that we see because we saw how Swift, all of the Swift partners,
Yep.
and who else now? They use third parties, because we have the diagram showing how Swift, for example, they can use third party applications. So if you look at CLS and all these different payment providers, settlement, they can just, like, DTCC can do the same thing Swift can do, is just connect to third parties that are connected to Ripple. So if you look at the Federal Reserve, they're indirectly connected to Ripple through all of their third party partners. CLS, I'm forgetting the names right now. Sorry, but that's another way that the DTCC can settle through XRP, is just through all of their third parties, through all of their partners
Yeah.
that are connected via just an API.
So, okay, so the CC had made some pretty significant investments into its own blockchain initiative. Do you think they would run this in tandem with XRP into its existing infrastructure? Or do you feel like this is something that maybe they're just using as a pilot or a test to see if this would work? What do you think is the model there that they're using?
I think, like, the goal has always been, so I don't know if they're gonna run in parallel for a while and then so slowly settle with XRP as the
Mhm.
liquidity gets going. But they need the liquidity to get going
Yeah,
first, right? You
liquidity
can't
is the
just
key.
there needs to be liquidity, and as the Ripple, so they could run parallel, or they could just connect and maybe flick the switch bit by bit. But we're seeing the liquidity ramp up right now with all the acquisitions, and we're seeing some of the corridors light up. The more corridors light up for on-demand liquidity, the more liquidity builds up, and it kind
Right.
of builds
Yeah.
a flywheel. And this is
So,
the goal.
yeah, okay, so a couple of things. The 3.5 quadrillion, we've seen growth coming out. I think it was over like 2.7 quadrillion you had mentioned last year. If you look at what that represents, because this is kind of a gross derivatives overall settlement volume that we see in the market. Do you think, first of all, do you think XRP would handle all of that, or do you feel like it would handle a fraction? I mean, we are talking about a quadrillion in terms of the dollar amount, but what would that look like in terms of XRP's share? What do you think?
So I think Stellar could settle a bit too, maybe, but I think that
So you
Ripple.
think it'll be multi-chain?
Well, I no, I just think, like, there's only Stellar and Ripple that can do it. That can do so. The part it would settle, I would say, is anytime they need to go cross assets. So whatever needs to be settled instantly, which I think everything, because I think, like, even if you're not going cross asset, you still want the settlement to happen
Yeah.
instantly, and you want that. You want all the benefits that are coming from ODL, like instant
Mhm.
settlement. You know exactly what the cost is going to be for the
Yeah.
transaction. But I know that Ripple, where they really play a big role, is if you're when you're going from one asset to another. So if a derivatives is going from anytime you need liquidity, basically. So it
Yeah.
depends.
Yeah.
Anytime you need liquidity, instant liquidity.
What would
Right?
you okay, so what would you say? I mean, because this to me, it's a very compelling opportunity. I think for the DTCC, what this might look like. Why do you think it hasn't been announced yet?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. I think my understanding is really what they're doing here is they're positioning XRP kind of special drawing rights and
Yeah.
a global stablecoin. And I actually found a document yesterday. Smoke Dog, that's his username, awesome researcher, basically published exactly what I've been saying. I said XRP here is the ESDR, electronic special drawing rights,
Yeah.
and a global stablecoin. So we have a document saying that it's XRP is going to be a stablecoin.
So you think maybe it's they're just trying to avoid confirmation bias? Is that
Yeah,
kind of
so I think, like, because they're using Ripple to kind of do this slowly, acting as a private company, just, they
okay.
want to be work with regulators, and they want to use
Right.
bring real use cases and really use crypto for utility. And I think they're like, they can't announce it, is what I mean, because this has been
Right.
planned for years, and they can't just announce it. I think for that reason, because they kind of got to be undercover, as if this is just kind of naturally progressing, as opposed to, this is the
Well, this
plan.
would be a huge shock to the industry, I think, dramatic shock to the industry, to say the least, if this were to really become and come to fruit, in the sense of markets starting to utilize this, especially with this level of scale for XRP, which would immediately take XRP. I don't even know what the value proposition of XRP would be at that time.
Yeah, it's because I think my understanding is they're doing settlement 5 days a week. Once they go full blockchain, which
Yeah.
they've said it, they said the goal is to tokenize everything within like a few
Yeah.
years. Like, the goal is, I think they said the goal
Jamie
is to put
Dimon
all.
mentioned that the other day. He said he thinks that we're 2 years away from tokenization of every financial asset in the world.
Exactly. But right
2
now, I think
years. Imagine where we'll be in 6 months.
it's crazy. It's moving so fast.
Yeah.
But right now, I think that's 5 days a week. That the 30, I think it used to be like 26 trillion, and then it's 3,000 trillion. I think this year would be 3.6, give or take. I don't know if that was last year or this year, but that's based on 5 days a week, I believe.
Yeah.
So
What if you go
imagine
to
what,
24/7?
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
and you tokenize everything, and everything starts more. So you're talking right now, I think 11 to 14 trillion per day,
Well,
just the derivatives.
this is the thing that Sandy Call mentioned to me the other day. We had her on the show from Franklin Templeton, and she kind of put it in a point that I think a lot of people are forgetting, and that is the unlock of all of this liquidity that is setting in open markets right now that is in reality just too lazy to move. It's not even that they're in money markets and all of that. It's that they're in open markets in, 150 countries around the world, and they're sitting there not moving, not necessarily being able to utilize. The minute that you unlock this into a blockchain and onto tokenized assets, it changes the dynamic and the speed in which that liquidity could be unlocked. And she says she thinks we're talking about one of the biggest unlocks on liquidity ever in the history of man.
Well, I think that they're doing that slowly right now to RippleNet, very slowly, I think, because this is what Brad always said. Our goal is to remove that trapped capital, right? You said,
Yeah.
because from the beginning, that's been their kind of marketing pitch, is like, we have 10 to 20 trillion of trapped capital, dormant capital,
Yeah.
sitting in Nostro Vostro accounts, not being used. And so, we're going to do cross border and help with
Well,
that.
that
That's the
changes
goal.
the whole issue with Nostrovastra because you would not need it.
No, well, that's the thing. Like, that's why Ripple is so powerful, because now you're eliminating all of the intermediary risk. You're eliminating the need for all this trapped capital, because it takes, like, I believe 8 to 9 months just to open an account in a Nostro Vostro to build a relationship with another bank. But with
Right.
RippleNet, you do that with one click of a button. Automatically,
Exactly.
you're connected with no risk, and it's yeah, it's big.
Okay, so you draw a parallel right now between the XRP ledger and the birth of the internet, really, because we're talking about the origination of TCP/IP, which is essentially, if you guys don't know internet speak, it's kind of the underlying technology that runs the internet. And when you look at where RippleNet is and where XRP Ledger is today, what makes XRP specifically suited to be the bridge for the internet of value?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I like that. So this is something I've been thinking for a very long time, Paul, is they've always said we're building the internet of value. Ripple is building the internet of value. And sometimes people will say like blockchain is the internet of value, but that's not correct. It's Ripple is the internet of value. Everything else, all the other blockchains, it's the fourth industrial revolution
Hmm.
or the tokenization age. But
Okay.
the internet of value itself is Ripple. And that's what they've been saying for 6, 7 years. Even Vitalik Buterin said, we're not the internet of value. Ripple is the internet of value.
Right.
And so I've been thinking about this concept. So for many years, I've been thinking like, okay, so if XRP is settling the value of this new internet, what is the internet of information worth? What is the internet worth today? So I've been digging into that, trying to understand like what's the value. And for the most part, they can't measure the value of the internet because we've only ever had one internet. And like you said, the internet of information. And it started slowly and started gaining adoption in 1999. And then it exploded. And right now, we're creating more data in 1 minute than we probably created in 10 years, because the amount of videos we are producing in one day today is
Yeah.
unbelievable. And this is data.
Well, it's now when you apply AI into this, the queries are getting to the point now where data centers are, the energy is going to be one of the biggest things out there next to agentic payment systems, which, Brad Kimes and I talked about this huge
Yeah.
opportunity here for sure. Walk us through. Okay, so the key difference here you highlighted is that XRP, obviously the token, is going to capture the protocol's value, unlike TCP/IP, which, to your point right there, it was more information. So this
Well,
is a different economic model.
yeah. So what I'm saying is, like, when we look at for example, if you look at the Hyperledger Foundation, when the document leaked out, they said we're going from the Internet of Information to the Internet of Value, and it laid out how they were going to build the Internet of Value. And it had the Interledger protocol, the XRP ledger, and R3 was a
Yeah.
big player.
How does
So
that play into it, though? Interledger protocol, how does that fit into this vision?
yeah, so basically, is the Internet of Information allows to move packets of information. They're packets that they're moving over the TCP/IP.
Yep.
Okay, so now what they're doing with the Interledger protocol and XRP, the Interledger protocol is allowing them to move packets of value. So instead of those packets containing data, those packets contain value.
Right.
So what's very interesting here is that when you want to go from one type of asset, so one type of value to the other type of value, you need XRP as a bridge. So what blew my mind here is like I said, okay, so the Internet of Information did not have a token that was capturing the value of this insanely massive network, which is the internet. But now XRP, you have a token that's capturing the value or the utility of this new internet being built. So to me, it's like, okay, so what is the value of the Internet of Information we have today? And what's the potential value of the next internet, which is the Internet of Value and XRP and Interledger? And what does it mean for a token that's capturing the value of an internet
Yeah.
eventually? And because that's what it is, like XRP is capturing the value of an internet when you need to go from any type of, like, the Internet of Information doesn't have that token, doesn't have a token capturing the utility. And what's the utility of the Internet of Information? We can't even measure it because the utility is mind-boggling. So
yeah, it just continued. Well, and you're talking about every economic transaction, every data transaction, every communique, anything needs authentication, which we're going to see more and more of as we see things start to explode. I think right now, especially with the fact that we've got so much layered into what, tokenization is going to look like in a very short period of time. How would the value accrue to the XRP token, though, if in fact this is utilized as the base layer, XRP ledger to what we're seeing? Because it's not like you have to purchase the token to be able to make that transaction. What would drive value to the XRP token?
yeah, so like I think like eventually, if you need XRP, it needs to go get it off the exchanges, or like
Yeah.
first they'll go to the massive transactions might use the OTC desk first, but eventually the OTC desk, they need to go to the public exchanges, and so on. So like eventually, like as you increase transactions like crazy, it needs to hit either the order books on the XRP ledger or the
Yeah.
exchanges, and it's not coming from just anywhere, right? The XRP is not falling from the sky, so it needs to come from somewhere. So the price has to increase because that's why it has so many decimals.
Right.
So
Right.
it has to come from somewhere. It's either going to get it from the decentralized order books, because the order books, there's a decentralized exchange. XRP ledger has a decentralized exchange built in, and the order books. And
Yeah.
it does multi-hop too, and that's something I want to look into to explain it better. But that's why it's so powerful, because it does a multi-hop. It doesn't even have to go, like it can almost go from one asset to one asset to one asset to the other. So let's say it wants to go from CBDC A to CBDC B, it can go from other assets to make its way to CBDC B. Like it's very advanced. The
So it's
XRP
like
ledger.
in essence, it's like a routing path,
Yeah,
which, this is something, and I think a lot of people don't realize, how important TCP/IP to even just to your web browser and your email client is out there. But if you had Internet of Value that's layered into this could be sent like an email. It literally could be, and even in the case with Interledger, that breaks up payments into a bunch of tiny packets. So if you send $1,000, this thing could break it down into thousands of tiny transactions to find the best route to make
correct,
sure
Paul.
liquidity is available. That would be unbelievable in terms of the efficiency.
You're 100% right. And that's exactly what Brad Garlinghouse has always said. We want to move money the same
Yep.
way information moves, like
Mhm.
sending an email. Like you
Yep.
nailed it. That's exactly what they've
Well,
been
the
saying. We
fact
want,
that you could do it and understand where the best liquidity pools are, that's the thing that makes it so compelling to
yeah,
me.
the protocol automatically does it. It found
Which
the best path.
automatically, that's where it flows in so much to what's happening with the DTCC. So,
Yeah,
which is, yeah,
yeah, yeah. If I think if you even if you want on demand liquidity, everybody needs to go from the same liquidity pool.
yeah.
Like it needs to. You can't just like can't have fractionalized liquidity. You need to have a global liquidity marketplace, which is why the Hyperledger Foundation, that Internet of Value, it said that XRP Ledger was going to be the global RTGS. It was going to
Well, this
collect.
also gets down to atomic settlement too. I mean, you're literally in a position where there would be no lost in the wires, so to speak, because it's been done before in traditional finance. This would either completely arrive or it would never leave your pocket.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I don't think there's ever been a transaction that has ever failed on the XRP Ledger. It either atomic settlement either is going to happen or doesn't happen at all. There's no
Right. Yeah.
partial. It's either completely settled 100% or it doesn't happen at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So XRP then solves this by being basically a bearer asset that would settle it instantly in essence. Once the XRP, okay, so if the XRP, which updates ledger updates in seconds, So the value would be, man, it'd be just like handing somebody a $20 bill over the internet. Just bam.
Yeah.
That is insane to me. I mean, you just don't think of how atomic settlement could become where it is today versus the old model that we've seen in finance for the last 35 years.
Yeah,
Huge, huge
it's a
difference.
big evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's the internet. It's the internet of value. It's the new internet. So the internet of information, we're moving data because right now, like regardless on what network you are, we can talk right now. Regardless if my internet provider is not the same as yours,
Yep.
and so on and so forth, we can talk. The internet, the protocol allows us to communicate and does the interoperability. I think like for XRP is the same thing, except XRP is capturing the middle, right? It's allowing that bridge. It's capturing the interoperability, the
Exactly.
value.
Yeah. Well, and I think, to your point, when you get into the value concept that we're really mentioning here, this is really the component that I think separates XRP from the pack. And it's one of the things you keep bringing up Stellar though. And this is something that people talk more and more about is Stellar. We're going to have the Stellar CEO on our show in the next couple of weeks. Explain to me how they play a role in this.
Yeah, it's just so sometimes I'm always XRP because to me it's the big one that's going to take the biggest piece of the pie. And sometimes in
Yep.
my comments on my YouTube channel, like, yeah, well, Stellar. So I might indirectly offend the Stellar community when I don't talk about Stellar at all when I'm
Sure.
talking about cross border payments. So that's why I try to mention them because they they're not a joke. They do, I believe, take a piece of the pie, but their focus is more on peer to peer
Yeah.
and small medium enterprise. So I think it was Jeb McCaleb that left Ripple and started Stellar, and the
Yes.
guy's untouchable, but we might not want to go down that rabbit hole. The guy is just, I don't know, he's just untouchable. But we'll leave it there for now. We started Stellar, and it seems there was like a
Wait a minute. What do you mean he's untouchable? What does that mean?
well, I think he was the one who started Mount Gox, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. That's right. You and I had that conversation, early in our first couple of videos. By
Yeah,
the way,
that's right. Yeah.
go back and watch Jesse and I's video on that because we got into some crazy discussions. Go back just on the channel. You'll see Jesse and I. We've had a couple of shows now, and that was one of the topics that I thought that was the one that I loved the most because it took us down some rabbit holes that I had never been down before.
Oh, nice. I
So
like
it was
those rabbit
fun.
holes.
Yeah.
But I want to add one thing on Jim McCall, if you don't mind. Mount Gox collapsed. Nothing happened to him
Yeah.
at all. And then as Ripple is getting sued, and this is what I believe is a bogus lawsuit, he was offloading XRP, no problem. Daily offloading XRPs. The guy's untouchable. It's a long story, but yeah. So Stellar, my understanding is so it left Ripple, they started Stellar, which kind of does the same thing, but they've added some functionalities, my understanding,
Yeah.
and changed a few things, and they're focusing more on the small, medium enterprise and peer to peer. So I think for me, it's not as big compared to being the global RTGS like XRP, because XRP Ripple has a CBDC platform that the
Yeah.
majority of central banks are building their CBDCs on, and they're actually private versions of the public XRP ledger, like a carbon
Right.
copy clone.
Right.
So I think Stellar is smaller for that reason because I don't think they're going to handle the big money. But I do have to admit that I didn't spend the time researching Stellar that I've done on Ripple. But the CBDC and the derivatives and like the CBDC platform that Ripple has, that alone should be bigger than Stellar. Just that, because you're settling, central bank money here. And yeah.
Okay, so when you look at you mentioned the central bank because this gets into all these international standards bodies, and that's everything from the BIS, the CPMI, FSB. What are the actual working groups that you think would be able to take advantage of distributed ledger technology? Which ones of those do you feel like are the ones to watch?
Yeah, so the ones to watch is really the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, so banks for all central banks. I believe they have about 60 central banks connected to them. And the groups are the CPMI, the Committee on Payments
Yep.
Market Infrastructure, which used to be called the Committee on Payments, what was it? Committee on Payments Settlement. I forget the word, but anyways, it used to be called Payment Systems and Settlements. Sorry, the CPSS is what it used to be called, but they changed the name. And you've got the PFMI, Principles for Financial Market Infrastructure.
Yep.
And you've got the also the Basel Committee, the BSB something, Basel
What
Committee.
about the FSB? Would this be another group that you have to watch?
The Financial Stability Board is at the highest level. So you have the
Yeah.
central banks, the BIS, then you have the Financial Stability Board. So these groups are what push out the recommendations. They call them
Yep.
recommendations, but they're not only recommendations. They push out the regulations and the recommendations to all of the central banks. And then, as you know, the
Interesting.
central bank controls the payment system for that nation. And so all these or also the financial ministers for each country, and they implement that at a more local level or provincial level or state level.
So, okay, I hate to keep interrupting you because I'm just
No, so please
things are
do.
coming to my
No,
brain
it's okay.
as we go because
Yeah, no,
you say things and it triggers me.
my pleasure. No, my pleasure. Cut me off anytime, Paul.
So when you mentioned the BIS, okay, so they had the unified ledger concept that they were running around, what was it, the innovation center or hub or something.
Yep, Innovation Hub. Yep,
So
that's the XRP ledger.
what were they proposing? Were they supportive of XRPL, or were they thinking private or permissioned on this proposal?
Yes. So to me, the whole agenda of Ripple from the very beginning is coming from the IMF and the BIS, Bank for International Settlements.
Was that where they were integrating into Project Agora, or was it Aurora? One of those.
There's many numerous projects under the BIS Innovation Hub, and many of so there's Project Nexus, Project Enbridge, Project Agora, Project
Agora. Yeah.
Jora. There's many different projects. Many of them are talking about CBDCs, instant settlement, cross border, removing
This
the
is
friction.
mind-boggling. This is mind-boggling, Jesse.
Yeah, I've
I
done
mean, how
about.
do you keep track of all this stuff?
I don't know, man. I don't sleep. I don't sleep.
It's unbelievable. Well, the key is that there's so many bodies that are integrated into our global finance system, which is basically running liquidity at global scale. Why would they all not be in defense mode right now because of Ripple alone?
Wait, who's that? Sorry.
I'm talking about all these organizations because this essentially moves all that power really into Ripple's backyard in terms
Yeah,
of the ability to settle at scale, in terms of, how Ripple has been able to integrate into all these potential systems. And if you throw in the DTCC, you look at what we've seen with the FSB and all of these organizations, why wouldn't they be concerned? Or do you feel like it's just they've already partnered and they're just not saying it yet?
yeah, it's all partners. So I think the way that you would fix that is you incentivize them, maybe with percentage of the escrow, like we've seen Ripple do with some
Yeah.
partners. You make it decentralized, where nobody's really controlling the actual network itself. It's fully decentralized, so everybody can agree, rather than having to agree like, oh, this country is going to be the global reserve currency, and we're all going to be forced to use that country's currency. This is a new model where everybody can agree because nobody's controlling the network, right? So you
Okay.
would maybe do it that way, is what they did.
I gotcha. What about, okay, so if you think about all of this integration, if you think about the course, kind of the new banking model, which is what XRP disrupts. But if and this could happen, if a CBDC to CBDC settlement were to happen directly, does that harm XRP's bridge role?
No, it is the bridge. It is the bridge for all the CBDCs eventually. That's the goal.
So you think that's an advantage if there's a whole bunch of different CBDCs out there, which right now I think it was 140 under proposal right now.
Yeah. Yeah, the more CBDs you have, the more you need, the more you
Demand for
tokenize your
bridge. Yeah.
CBDCs, the more you need a bridge. Because that's the goal. Like the BIS, the reason they would all agree is because the BIS calls the shots,
Yeah.
basically. And so
Yeah.
this has been planned for a very long time. Most people don't realize how powerful the BIS is. They are untouchable. They cannot be audited. They set the regulations. They also set the requirements for liquidity. They
Yeah.
decide what's a tier one asset, tier two. They decide what's considered collateral for the banks, what doesn't meet the collateral requirements. I mean, they control everything for
Okay,
about.
with all of this going on, you know that the institutions are watching. Now we've got XRP ETFs now blowing past 1 billion. Yesterday, I saw a tweet from by Brad. I'm analyzing this and I'm thinking, man, 30 billion possibly in the next 90 to 120 days, especially if we see a market run and we see a global liquidity push with new Fed rates coming down, which most likely is going to happen.
Sure hope
But
so.
if you look at the accumulation thesis by institutions, all right, whale wallet analysis, you look at maybe exchange outflows to custody, what would be the tell signs that institutional is starting to move on XRP?
Ooh,
Do you think it would be primarily ETF, or do you think it's just going to be all OTC kind of transactions or something on the nation state level?
wow. Well, they're going to deplete the OTC. That's a big misconception, right? People think that the OTC just gets their XRP falling from the sky for them. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the
Well,
major
yeah, it's
transaction.
eventually going to be gone and they have to go to market for it. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
they have to
sure.
go to market for it. I do think that they get some from Ripple, maybe because every month Ripple releases, I think. So they
So
might.
that's a whale wallet analysis that you could keep an eye on. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking of ways you could kind of front run this, how to do you front run this of understanding where these market moves are happening? Because I feel that we're eerily close to something like this occurring.
I would say you just listen to Paul Barron, what he's saying, and load up your bags.
We
Listen to
we
the
are
people.
we are
Load up your bags.
we're constantly in the mix of all this. I mean, gosh, we're interviewing analyst after analyst and, insight banker after insight banker. And then we have a pretty good set of, I won't call them insiders, but people that talk to us that are in Wall Street. And especially, because our channel has kind of grown to become more of a macro crypto, international and political channel. And because of that, it's drawn in all this new audience from unusual places. I will say that we get some very intriguing emails
Okay.
that come to our
I
our
believe you.
inbox.
I
Yeah,
believe you.
partners at Rever Networks is a very interesting inbox. I will
Okay.
say that.
Oh, yeah.
Stop there.
I believe you.
So okay, so all of this is good. I mean, it's good. It's a good insight. I think when you kind of look at also what's happening right now in the EU. And this is in reference to, because some people would say that XRP could be the digital gold. I know a lot of people would say that no, it's Bitcoin that's the digital gold. You look at gold's market cap hovering at around what, 30 trillion now, I think. I mean, it's up there, especially with it above 4,000. When you look like, would it be more like gold or would it be more like oil where it's consumed rather than stored?
Wow. Almost boat, if that makes sense. Be
Digital oil gold.
because they store it, I think they hold it to be able to settle their transactions instantly.
Yeah.
The banks, because David Schwartz said the end goal is central banks to hold it, then it's game
Right.
over.
Right.
So they hold it, but at the same time they use it. So I don't know, maybe a bit of both. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let me kind of steelman this a minute. What happens, because I'm trying to think, what happens if the DTCC builds their own token or a basket of assets that they could utilize? I don't think they'll use USDC, but they could maybe go the RLUSD route, as a stable coin, a dollar-backed stable coin. They need a decentralized asset like XRP to go in this direction.
yeah. Yeah, you need something decentralized, and you need something with the liquidity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, like the DTCC, a lot of people don't realize, but they probably answer to the DT to the BIS and to the Federal Reserve. I mean, it's all the same people: IMF,
Yeah.
BIS, DTCC. So they've all agreed a long time ago that they need a neutral bridge currency. They need a new Bretton Woods, which is what's called the Bretton Woods 3 or the digital Bretton Woods. They talk about in a very subtle way. You see all the major think tanks around the world, the central bank think tanks and the global economic think tanks that work for the central bankers. They all talk about a Bretton Woods
Yeah.
agreement, a new Bretton Woods. And so they've all agreed a long time that we need a new Bretton Woods, a new neutral bridge currency that nobody controls. And so every government can agree to it. And it fixes the Triffin's dilemma, which is the issue of all the different central banks and governments,
Yeah.
countries being forced to hold the sovereign currency of another nation to do its settlement because
Yeah,
that
it
country
creates
will have to
what do
run.
they call them? Bilateral swaps or something that
Yeah,
go
it's a big
what
mess
they were
because the country, like for example,
Project
the US right
Dunbar.
now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the US, because their US dollar is being used as a global reserve currency, they have to run trade deficits
Yeah.
to supply the world with liquidity with US dollars. Otherwise, the whole global trade slows down. The whole
Yep,
economy
yep,
slows down. So,
yeah.
that's what we call the Triffin's dilemma.
What would you say though when you look at, because some people would argue this, and that is that Ethereum has a scaling solution. If ETH gets fast enough and cheap enough, especially on whether it's on ETH itself or on the L2s, is it a better integration? Does it potentially have the capacity to capture institutional settlement? Do you
No,
think it could do it in comparison?
no.
No.
In my opinion, it's just because it's not purposely built as a bridge asset.
For this, yeah, yeah,
It's not built to move. Like for example, no, I would like somebody from the Ethereum network
foundation,
or Ethereum Foundation
yeah,
show me where you can say I want to pay this. I want to pay my supplier over there. He
yeah.
wants yens, and I'm gonna send him euro, and automatically it's
Exactly,
gonna go
yeah,
from euro,
we had
right?
a conversation with the ETH Foundation about this very point. I don't even think they are trying to claim that's the future of where it's going.
It's not their
Uh,
goal. It's not their goal. And even Vitalik Buterin said we're not the internal value
yeah,
because again, like you have to with Ripple, you send a payment, you send a certain currency, and the recipient receives whatever currency they want at the other end. The protocol and the pathfinding and the multi-hop and
Yeah.
everything that they've built automatically does it. There's no other blockchain that does this. And this is what some of the other communities, other blockchains that
Yeah,
think
they get
that
lost.
they're
Yeah.
not getting that in their head at all.
Yeah.
It's not purposely built as a bridge asset. You'll never
Yeah.
compete with Ripple. They'll never compete with Ripple.
Well, I mean, looking at what Ripple's doing so far, nobody's making the kind of moves that Ripple has made just in the last 18 months. I can't imagine what the next 18 months is going to look like, especially with the fact that we've got such a breakneck speed into Wall Street right now around tokenized assets. So this is going to get a little crazy. This was the CFTC story coming out talking about tokenized collateral in derivatives markets. And they're going to start with keyword start with Bitcoin and ETH and USDC. I thought that was a bad move on USDC, but I understand why. This should have RLUSD in it, and it should have XRP in it fairly soon. What do you think that it's going to take to see that actually become reality? Because if this now, where we can start to essentially use these assets within literally as a security, why would we not have XRP and RLUSD in this?
Yeah, I'm wondering. To me, is I wonder if XRP might not go there because it's going to be the underlying infrastructure. I think it'll be there
Oh,
too, but it'll be the underlying as well
yeah.
because it's gonna settle. Like I said, anytime they need instant settlement or liquidity or it's going kind of cross asset, it's going to be the underlying infrastructure that's going to
Yeah.
settle it all under the hood. And so it's going to be like we were talking about the internet earlier. People use the internet, they don't realize what's the underlying infrastructure, the underlying protocol
Mhm.
that is settling that data that we're moving, right? So
Well,
I see,
this is a 3-month test. So this sounds to me like they're going to be very active on getting this thing going.
yeah, I think you could see XRP there publicly, like being used as commodity collateral, but
Yep.
also settling being the underlying infrastructure. Not maybe, it will. Because that's the internal value. And the whole goal is the
Wouldn't you
derivatives
think
market.
though that, digital assets as customer collateral would work very well for XRP and RLUSD? I would want to use my RLUSD as a digital asset collateral for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
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 I think it's just, RLUSD would be a potential here. That only validates what you're saying, which is a lot more into the tune of where the bigger picture is going around not only what the CFTC could end up doing, classifying maybe XRP in the vein of going in this direction. So that all I think is a huge opportunity because
I
yeah, I mean, we could end up getting even more, futures and more spots kind of already, even though we're already kind of dominating it right now. When I say we, meaning XRP dominating what's happening in the ETF market for
I'm a bit
sure.
biased, Paul, but oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I'm a bit biased, but I think Ripple and XRP will get whatever it needs to be successful. So
Yeah.
whatever classification it will eventually get is kind of
What
my
is your current strategy for holding XRP? I mean, I talk with a lot of analysts out there and investment advisors they look at XRP like a Bitcoin or like an eighth, just hold it. And if you need money, you take loans against it, you build out an estate plan. This is a long-term asset that you just never sell. You just always lend against it, rotate capital in, and use it as a base that accrues and starts to build over time. Is that how you play it?
Yeah, so a few different factors at play there. I think if it like you got to just huddle. At the end of the day, if you can, not financial advice, okay, we're not financial advisors, but to me, is you have to huddle and be patient because sometimes as soon as you move, that's when it takes off. Like for
Yeah.
example, Ripple didn't do anything for like 5, 6 years. It's
Mhm.
the only thing that stayed stagnant. I think that was by design. And then all of a sudden does like a 600% increase in 30 days. I think this was like last year, about a year ago. It did
Yeah.
600%,
This
700% in
time last
literally
year.
30 days, right? It's
Yeah.
just crazy. So it takes a lot of patience though when you see everything going up, down, and you see all this shiny stuff everywhere and Ripple's not moving and it's the only one that has all the institutions, all this crazy connections and stuff like that. So but I think it depends. Like I think if XRP was to moon, I would definitely sell some. Especially I'm looking at
When you
other
say
projects.
moon, what would
Well,
moon be for
let's say
you?
we do like 100x or 1000x, something stupid. Like I think to
Oh,
me, you have to
yeah.
sell, or even if it does a 30, 20x, I would depends because if it goes high where I'm confident, and I think it'll come back down. I'll have to wait another few months. Maybe I sell and buy another project that I think is still extremely undervalued, which one of them is QNT. So because of my convictions on QNT, I would back up the truck
Quant.
on
Yeah.
QNT and Quant. Oh, but like I would never personally myself at today's price, I would never stake my XRP or lend it out for 5-6%. To me, it does not make sense to risk it. I don't care how safe the protocol is, how safe the institution is. I would never lend it out personally
What if you
myself.
could do it without it ever leaving your wallet?
Yeah, I would. But later on, when let's say it increases drastically, and then I can just take, let's say, 5 or 10% of my portfolio,
Yeah.
then I would lend it out. I would maybe take a loan against it. So there's the option of taking a loan if it's gone high. But I'm just saying, like, if I need a loan and that I wouldn't take a loan unless I really, really need it right now. But in the
Yeah.
future, when the price is higher, and I just need to put 10% as a loan, then that's fine. But using 100% in a loan only if I absolutely have to and my back is against a wall. I
Yeah.
would keep that in cold storage, or I would that's me. But definitely I would long term, you want to hold it long term, unless it, like I said, you see a crazy, crazy price, then let's
Yeah.
say they decide they're gonna back it by gold, or we see this crazy,
We just
then you
had
want to sell
Hugo
something.
on from Flare. Obviously, his argument is opposite of that. He wants you to use it in DeFi, make an F asset, go out there and get it to work, which is intriguing. If you guys want to watch the video, we just turned it live today. And it does get into the whole argument that it is now another use case for XRP, because in the past it's been a use case of just hold and watch the charts. Now you've got the potential where he's arguing, but now it's an asset that you can actually earn yield on.
Well, no, it's
And you
true,
can
but that Flare is,
put it to work.
Flare is kind of the exception. So,
Yeah.
Flare is kind of the exception. I mean, they are. Flare is awesome. That
Yeah.
is, I mean, the potential for Flare is huge.
It's huge. Yeah. The unlock
And
is going to be unbelievable. Hugo
yeah,
and I got into this. It
yeah.
blows my mind where this
But
could go.
but I would do 5-10%, Paul. You know what I mean? I wouldn't do 100% in a protocol.
Oh, for sure. Well,
Yeah,
anybody
that's what I
would.
meant. That's what I meant.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think those are the kind of things. Again, not financial advice, but I think anybody with a common sense understands how to diversify a portfolio. If they're watching our show or they're watching crypto in general, understanding diversification, probably only a certain percentage of their entire asset, lump is in crypto or risk assets anyway. And I think that's the thing that you have to kind of consider is what percentage of that group starts to navigate into more of these, I won't even call them risky, but more of these diversified models inside of your crypto program. Well, listen, guys, we're gonna cover this and much more with Jesse in the future for sure. Jesse, where can they find you? What's the best place to chat with you?
Apex Crypto Insights is my YouTube channel, and then Apex Consult is at Apex Consult is my Twitter,
Okay.
and then my email. But yeah, they'll find all that on my YouTube channel.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for
Apex
the shout out,
Consult.
Paul. I appreciate that.
Over on X, you guys follow Jesse over there. Jesse, thanks so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
It's really my pleasure. I want to add one thing, Paul. Guys, if you're not following Paul Barron, you're the only one on planet Earth probably not following him. So if you're watching on my channel, give him a follow.
It's crazy. This channel is kind of doing pretty well now.
I doubled in like 4 months.
It's crazy. It's to my
so.
point is that what's happened, there was a company that came to us that was they analyze YouTube channels and podcast channels. And we had won an award in the crypto category, but they were curious as to whether or not we belonged in the crypto category.
You definitely belong.
And I was like, whoa, what do you mean? And they said, well, we actually think you belong more in the finance category. And I'm like, interesting that you guys think that. But it's, obviously we would be up against the CNBCs of the world, the Squawk Boxes, those guys, which is fine. I don't mind. Bring them on.
Don't get me started on them.
Yeah.
But when I came on your show, I think it was about 3-4 months ago for the first time, the first podcast, I think you had about 160,000. Now you're already at like 320. Like
it's
every
crazy.
week it's jumping, so it's like doubled. So you'll be at 1 million on this podcast, I think, within 6 to 9 months.
The audio podcast is already over 500,000 subs. So that tells you how much people are interested in this topic, and specifically in Ripple and what's happening in that ecosystem. So you guys are in the right place with Jesse and I. Again, thanks again, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Paul, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
You bet.
Thank you. Take care.
We'll catch you next time right here on the XRP podcast. Take care.